I had it thinking that. Hmm? So you're taking the blame, Becky? Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I always take the blame for anything, so yeah, she's always got my back. All right. So I think we've got the rest of it. We're going to go in order. So everybody, for the committee's purposes, I've asked Paul and Reed. We're going to do a deep dive into. Normally, this is the month that we do the mid-year quarterly report of the county, and we usually just do a general overview. This year, we're going to, because again, kind of going along with what we did on June 4th, is we're going to go through a little bit deep dive on each department. Kind of look at, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at there's always kind of some unique things in some of the departments for us to understand as board members, and also take a look and see where, because we're at mid-year, where we're at on this year's budget. Are we ahead? Are we behind? Are there different things that some red flags that we want to take a look at and talk about? All those kind of things. So having said that, Paul, the stage is yours, and we'll try to keep up.
Okay, so let's go through the normal financials that we typically go over in the month, but we'll do this as a quarterly or half-year review. The first one will be the cash balance. And I guess the question to the committee, anybody have any questions, or did they see any anomalies that they wanted to ask? And I know for Dean and Keen, it's kind of tough because we've brought you in right on top. But one of the things I wanted to show or give you guys a heads up on is in that cash balance. If you look in the county general, it actually shows a negative balance in county general of $491,000. And everybody's going, you can't have a negative balance in your bank or your cash. Well, we can, because we've had some large payouts yet this year. The first of it being our FOP contract. Obviously, our labor costs are a lot higher, but we've also had 2 months in the first 6 that had 3 pay period months. It's kind of an anomaly. So that's why it's negative. It's also cyclical in that we have not received any property tax revenue yet. So that'll be coming in the month of July, which will bump that back up. But you can also look at the capital fund, which has $9 million in it, which is part of our total balance in terms of cash. So we are still within our process of at least 3 months worth of cash on hand. So that's it for cash. The statement line, or I'll call it our income statement, as you look through that, and this is where we'll probably get into the departments, Jim. Our revenue, we should, in theory, if this was an even every month, we should be at about 50% revenue. We're only at, we're still looking at to get 72%. But when you look at that, there's been no property tax revenue again coming in. That'll start in July. It'll hit us hard July, August, September, and October. So that'll catch up fast. It's the expenses, actually we're at 47% left in terms of budget that you wanted to talk about in total, and we should be at 50. So expenses, I think we do a pretty good job of finding and budgeting. It's the revenue we have a hard time with. So, and then is there anything on the revenue one that you guys wanted to talk about? It looks like sales tax is coming in strong, other than income tax is okay, other than PPRT. So is there anything there that you guys would want to deep dive in? All right. let's go then. We added something this month and it's the department heads. So can you tell me what department is up there first so that I can, okay. Because my file does not go in alphabetical order. Okay, I think that's what.
It's pretty close to,
Yeah,
if it's not
so-
exactly, it's pretty darn close to alphabetical order.
Okay, so ARPA, when we look at that, we have a year-to-date spend of about 975,000. We had a budget of 1.5 million spend because we really didn't think we were going to be going through all of our ARPA money this year, but it looks like we will. And we have about 2.265 remaining in value. So along that lines, obviously we've received all the money we're ever going to receive on that, but that money is sitting in a separate bank account. It's fully accounted for, and between Patty and Sarah, they actually have a different spreadsheet that they track that money on, and we match up perfectly. So looks like everything's good for that. Did you want to go into that BOR then?
Well, why, yeah, because really this number doesn't have much meaning for us right now because we've got that big bill outstanding.
Well, we've got
so-
we've got a BOR out there for a big bill. But what it does tell you is you have 2.265 of cash there.
Right.
Right. The BOR, I think Jeremy wrote it up for a little over 2 million, but what that number doesn't, I'm seeing it in total, but what it doesn't show you is there were already some commitments with some of that money. So I think that BOR number needs to change to, what is that number, Sarah? I know it's like 1.19 something.
Yes, so the total available funds that we have that have not been allocated to any projects is $1,982 or $1,982,415.25. So on the board action request form, Jeremy has the number as $2,058,587. It should be that $1,982,415.25, because that is what remains available in ARPA funds. So then the next change in
And
the
that's of the
number.
uncommitted, but we still had, and the leftover out of on the 2.65, that was $200,000 and $250,000 in the business development. I think, don't we have that, or
No,
what's
no,
left in that?
It's over several, I'm sorry, it's over several different projects, but we do have about $290,000 allocated to projects. Some of that will be a take back, but we were going to line up, or we were going to do our take backs in July at the quarterly report.
Okay, and since we moved all the ARPA dollars over to basically capital, do we, basically it's more of an accounting function? We're going to
Correct.
account for 1.9.
Correct.
And
What
the
we're
rest of
looking,
it will come out of what we consider our regular capital.
yeah, to pay this invoice, we'll use the 1982 out of ARPA. We'll also then use the remaining funds, probably about maybe close to 100,000. I'm not sure on that invoice, out of capital to pay that invoice. And then that's just an accounting function that's done. Then we'll true it up in July with whatever's left and whatever we need to clean up.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure.
So I think from this standpoint, though, you guys probably want to approve the corrected BOR because they'd like to get, Allied, I think, would like to get paid.
Yeah, I would
So,
imagine so.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll do that. Well, I'm glad we'll note it there, and
Yeah.
when that comes through, we'll
Okay.
take care of that in due course.
All right.
Hey, Jim,
Yeah,
do we have enough for their salaries to go on out for the next 2 years? You want to save something there because you can't pay salaries out of capital.
Well, I think they would in the take back of
Okay.
value.
Just want to make sure there's enough in there.
Yeah, because there would be dollars. I don't have it in front of me, but I think they have close to 100 and something of take backs. Inside of that, you could then allocate some of that into the administrative side, because I
Sure.
think that would be that would dry up by the end of this year, the administrative value.
So you had enough in there to,
So you'd have enough to move it into administrative to keep it going for the next couple of years.
And we can do that. Can't we do that?
You can do
in
that in
budget?
July. Well, that,
Or-
or in July, when you do your take back, you just move it around to different commitments.
Yeah, because we got a budget, we've got for the salary line items and related
Correct. You
administrative
can-
costs. We've got that budget through the end of this year.
Correct.
And then, but we're gonna have to have something
For-
there
For next year.
yeah, for next year for the cleanup.
Yeah, for all of the cleanups. Yep.
Yep.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Everybody understand that? Okay. All right, very good. Any questions on the ARPA section? Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna hit each one of these things as they come through, and so if you have questions and why things are set up the way they are, or whatever, I want you to ask. So, okay. Any other questions on ARPA? Okay, move ahead, Paul.
And okay, just do you guys need to vote though on that board action?
We
request?
will in
Yeah,
new
today.
business.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Yep, yep.
All right. The next one is probably assessor. All right. So as you go through there and you can see that, I mean, and it's up on the screen as well. Probably what you want to look at, the thing that I look at the most is that last column where it says percentage of budget remaining. Because what you're looking at is you're looking for run rates. You're looking for, well, how much does somebody have left? As you look, you know, the biggest expenses are probably salaries. So those are the lines that I'd want to look at to make sure I'm still within, since this is a half-year review, are we still close to that 50% guidance of available value left? The other item, you know, your bigger expenses, health insurance, IMRF, FICA, those are the kind of things that are also within line. But then you have all of the expenses to run that operation, and in terms of general expenses. So just different softwares, postage, you know, those are small dollars, but they do add up. And as you come down to that, you know, you can see year to date, this is through May. We've got expenditures of 204,000. They have a total budget of 353,000. And you'd say, wait a minute, their run rate, they're not gonna make it, but they'll be fine. They had some early expenditures in the year, and then they'll come through and it'll run rate fine out for the rest of the year. What you don't maybe see on that sheet, if you keep going down, is, yeah, keep going. There you go. So then there's also, if you remember in the retreat, we talked about all the different funds that we have and who's responsible for them. Well, so this is the GIS fund, and it shows a fund balance of $201,000 in that fund. That is money that is in our bank available for expenditures for GIS. You can use it in terms of all of the different expenditures. A lot of that would be software for the development of the maps on the website. Any questions? You can ask any question. Go ahead.
Well, we're adding a new person. But it looks like we're at 53% of the salary.
Correct.
So we're gonna go negative by adding a person or?
No, that is kind of, so at 53% and you still haven't added that person, and we're halfway through, you probably, there's enough money that we can move between the GIS value here and that county general to make that up. In other words, to make that whole. And that was where that was going to come from. These numbers don't reflect that yet, but there was a movement of about $18,000 to $22,000 into the county general from GIS that would cover that. And since we're really only halfway through the year, it should be fine with that
Okay.
value.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
So something that jumps out at me, Paul, is on the GIS, health insurance, we got budget of $7,200. Nothing's been taken out of that.
Yeah,
That line
correct.
item.
And if you look at that, that could be because the person that's in that department may not be on our health insurance. We anticipated they would be, but they're
We
not.
budgeted it, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
They didn't take
Yeah.
it. Gotcha.
So again, there's where you have budget value that, you know, that's available during, you know, if you have to redo your budgets, if you have to do some adjustments, there's dollars there that are available. The other thing, if you look at software licensing, it's got a budget of 80,000 and you've only gone through 21.5 and you're halfway through the year and you're thinking, wow, there should be a lot there. But there could be a bill coming in August or September that you get once a year for software.
Mhm.
So that's the kind of stuff that you have to watch for, knowing that, wow, I've got some cushion there, but maybe I don't.
And that's one of the questions, you know, that are good for the department heads, for the committee to ask when we have our hearing and we have the individual meetings with the department heads. Is, you know, for us to be able to understand those timing issues.
Yeah, correct. You'd want to know, well, why do you need 80,000? Well, they can probably get you to the dollar value of the software costs that would happen. And I'm just talking specifically that line. The other thing that you guys would want to ask is, hey, I see so many dollars here at the budget or in the fund balance. And in this case, it's 200,000. Well, what's your anticipated use of that funds, right? Not that it's dead money, but it's money just sitting in the bank account that unless we make a concerted effort to move it somewhere to use it, and sometimes you can't because it's restricted based on the fees that are collected or have to be used specifically for that. But if you didn't have a restriction and you could move it around, could you move it to capital? Could you move it to this? So those are the questions you want to maybe ask of the department heads as they come, you know, before us to say, hey, I want you to make sure that you've thought about your budget, what you're going to use that money for, what you need it for. If they need it, they need it. I mean, I'm not trying to deny them any funds. I'm trying to say, what are you thinking about in terms of how to use that going forward? I don't think she has any. I think that's the only other fund on the assessor side that would be outside county general is the GIS.
Any other questions in regards to the sheriffs or sheriffs, assessors? Well, that was a faux pas. All right,
All right,
So
what's
we'll
the
move on.
next one you got?
circuit clerk.
Circuit clerk.
Amy's here. She can ask us, she can give us all knowledge.
All right. So circuit clerk. So this department has a lot of fees that they collect. And as you can see at the top, we have circuit clerk fees, drug fines, court system fees, right? So a lot of their expenditures are also covered under the fees that we collect from just the different judicial items that are going through Amy's department. The other thing is you look at is, again, you look at salaries and part-time, they're all running pretty good. Overtime, she's doing very well, keeping that under control from what I would see. And then in the expenditures under county general, I would say that they're very frugal. I mean, they're staying within their budget fairly well on that. The question, you know, and even circuit clerk fees with the new rule, if you will, Amy, the Safety Act, we kind of thought maybe we'd see a lowering of fees. Sorry to ask you a question, but if I was looking at this and I see year to date under fees of 116,000 and we have a budget of 250, do you think you're going to make that budget, or is that all based on traffic that goes through your
Right.
department?
We're hoping, but with waiver of fees, you know, a lot of people get out of their fees depending on their income and whatever reason it may be. There's criteria. Sometimes they get their whole fee 100% waived for filing fees or costs, or they get 50%, 75%. I don't have figures in front of me. If you want to see some reports, I can run some reports and see exact numbers, you know, from when this started. But I mean, we are seeing lower amounts in, I believe, in automation. I don't have that with me, but when we get there
Yeah, I'll
and
show it to
other
you.
funds,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean.
Yeah, I was leading that question on to you to help these
Right.
guys understand what happens when a new rule comes in from the state and how that affects us and what we need to do as a team to offset that.
Sure.
So,
And you'll see in other funds, there are some miscellaneous funds and items and numbers in there that kind of I want to keep for a backup for when mandates come out, or when now in previous years, our case management system, you know, if they had to change something, I had to come up with some money. So that's what I've, you know, try to keep those for.
Sure.
But yes, we are seeing lower numbers in other funds and things. And like I said, we can offset some things in other areas as well. So I think we're doing well for the most part.
You know, when we had our all hands meeting, we were thinking $400,000 down, even up to $500,000. It's starting to look like maybe it wasn't quite as bad. It's still going to be down.
It's still gonna be
But-
down, but we won't know. I can run some numbers here and, you
Well,
know,
that's all right. We can go
No.
through those when we.
sure, when we
work
get
your
down
budget,
to it,
but-
to each line item and
Yeah,
know where we're
yeah,
at. Yes.
yeah.
yeah, no, this was
But-
not for you to have to do anything today. I
Yeah,
was-
no, we
it
were,
was-
it
was-
don't
Yeah,
think we
no,
were.
I'm
this
feeling
has
very
got you
good where
for
we're
aiming.
at. I mean, you know, it depends, you know, every day's different, but I'm feeling very good where we're at. And I think we're within budget.
Yeah.
We
No,
should be
well,
okay.
just so you know, Amy, and I didn't give you a heads up on anything today. This is more for the finance committee, just to understand and get prepared for as we
Sure.
go through budget.
Okay.
So this is for us,
Yeah,
not
thanks.
putting you on the spot.
No, that's okay.
Or anybody else that's coming down the pike, Stacy. But I think Stacy, I
Right.
think we're gonna get, since you're P, you'll probably be next month, because I don't think we'll get to you today.
Right.
So, anyway.
So any questions on the county general side of, you know, that the circuit clerk's operation?
So you can see that as you scroll through, Amy's area is one of the departments that have a lot of different line items that make up her overall operation. So you really have to, you
Yeah.
gotta scroll down there.
Yeah, and then as we scroll down, we have court document storage. And again, that's your, that fund I show, Amy is having about $200,000 in fund balance. But it, you know, again, you have fees from the courts that are coming through that help support that fund. And it looks like most of your expenses are probably software and items of that. There isn't really any salary through there. It looks like we did budget for a part-timer, but I don't know that you ever got that person available to you. I know you were struggling with getting people.
We're still struggling. But I did just hire a part-time person. So yes, I mean, but you've not taken it out of that one fund, I see.
Yeah.
So that's a
no,
good thing.
Yeah.
You can also see in equipment and furniture, we've been very lucky with the court technology grants that we haven't touched that very often. So that's there too. I just wanted to
Yeah.
point
correct.
that out, that equipment and
Correct.
furniture the last couple of years
Yeah.
have not been used due to the court
Yeah.
grant very often. I mean,
No.
things do come up.
And,
No,
and-
no,
Go
If
ahead.
I could, and I always ask you this, Amy, but the case management software, now that, you want to give just a quick update since you're here, that.
Sure. We are narrowing it down. Next Tuesday, we have our last and final demo. So we will know very soon what we're doing. And I will definitely put that in the budget.
Oh, yeah.
So be aware
Yeah.
that that's coming.
Yeah.
I don't have any numbers yet, any numbers that I can tell you, because we've already done a demo. It's taken a long time, with everybody's schedule and, they're doing their thing, we're doing ours, but we might, like the first demo we did, I think it was back in November when we started this. So, we only did it for the circuit clerk's office. We didn't include the state's attorney or probation or public defender. This one is for the whole courthouse next Tuesday. Not that people are going to change things, but I'm just wanting everybody to see this program, the judges, everybody, to see if they like it, and everybody's involved. And we'll see what happens. So the numbers from November aren't any good right now. So
For the benefit of I know we've talked about it a number of times, but this is a huge deal.
it's a very huge deal.
And can you explain to?
Sure. I've
how-
traveled to numerous courthouses to see what they use. I mean, there's a handful, there's 5 to 6 vendors in the state of Illinois, okay? Yes, Gooden's Associates, they've had like 83 counties. We left Gooden's to go to what we have now. So Winnebago County and I are the only 2 that have what we have now. We have to get out. They've been bought out numerous times. I believe Winnebago County is getting out. So we're looking at 2 to 3 other vendors, and we've, like I said, I've been to Peoria, I've been to McHenry, I've been to all these courthouses to see how they run. I've gotten quotes just for the clerks. Now I'm getting quotes for the whole courthouse, or, just to see where we're at and see what we want to do. It's a group effort. It's not just me. And this
So-
is a huge decision.
As far
to make.
as the software package goes, what all does that do for you? Because it says case management, but it sounds like that touches everything that happens across the street. So
It
how
does.
does that all work?
Now, in a perfect world, we would all be on the same system. Probation, state's attorney, public defender, where we could all talk. The state's attorney, they file a case. If they hit a button, it goes into our queue. We open it up, we give it a case number, probation comes down, they get what they need to do, file things. It's put in the judge's schedule for the day, or where it needs to go if it's up for jail call. It's simple things like that. It's quick, fast, with a click of a button. It's not that simple right now. The state's attorney's office has to bring the documents down. We have to type in it all manually, give it a case number. It may take 5, 10, 15 minutes, depending on, how many counts a person has. We have to put in every single count. If somebody has 90 counts of battery, we have to put every count in. So it takes time. I mean, Stacy can speak when it's time, but they have to do a lot of stuff on the background before we even get to jail call. That takes hours of running criminal histories, things like that. But if we can all get on the same thing, that would be perfect. I would love it, but I can't say that that's going to happen. But it's a very huge decision, but I have everybody involved to make sure this is what we're going to need, and that we don't have to switch for hopefully like 20 years down the road. But like I said, if we all talk, it works great. If the public defender is appointed, excuse me, it'll go right in their queue. If Nikki could see it at the public, or Bob, and they would know, oh, this guy's on jail call today. We're appointed, or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of things with different cases, and it would make it a lot simpler, less paper, be more efficient
Very good.
for every office.
Well, I'm sure we'll get into this more.
We will get into it a lot
as we
more.
get into budget, but thank you, appreciate for the
Yeah,
update.
so-
And it sounds daunting, but.
It is, but
exciting.
Yeah, we're trying to, get all our ducks in a row and make sure we get the right one
Right.
that works for all of us.
Anybody have any questions for Amy? Okay.
So in then there's, as she mentioned, the clerk's automation fund. Again, that's got a balance in it. Most of that would be fees collected and then software is your cost. It's within a budget each, and Amy's gonna be putting together a budget for that every year. So determining how to use that money, what to use it for. There's child support enforcement that she has, in her area. And it's a little bit of a smaller, fund, but again, it's there for, specific reasons within the judicial side of it. And then there's, circuit clerk operations. That's just some of the stuff that would run your office that, is outside of the county general that we budget for. So again, a lot of those funds are supported by fees collected.
On the child support enforcement, that interest income, am I seeing that as a minus 135 or 136%?
Well, what that is they've earned $1,464 in interest. We budgeted $100. So
Okay.
yes, I mean, so yeah. And so we're way over is what that means. On the fees, anything in that account structure, if the last 6 digits begin with a 4, let's put in theory, that's a revenue. And we always show a revenue as a credit in accounting world. The accountants are weird, but that's what we do. So good question, but yeah, we're actually, which brings me to and I maybe mentioned that last Tuesday night, was we are doing well with interest this year. Of course, with everything up, we should be doing well. So, and Reed's doing, like I said, he's doing a nice job of making sure the banks are paying us as much as they can. And any CDs that we have, we push them for their best rate because they actually have a rate better than most other places will get. So,
it goes to the point that we talked about the other night and talked about a number of times. The interest rate environment that we are in is making a significant impact. I mean,
it is.
where we budgeted $100 and now we're halfway through the year and we're at $1,400 of income. You multiply that and you're going to see that every single department, every single fund. And
Yeah.
it really adds up to significant dollars for the county.
And it also helps the department heads for the funds that they control, and that there's a little bit more available cash for them when it comes time to, if there's an expenditure that they hadn't anticipated, hey, that can help offset it. So, yeah.
Right.
All right. What's the next one? Is it county clerk? Coroner. This one's going to probably be a small one. There's not a lot to this. There's really no fees in the county general line from a coroner's perspective. But again, you go back to it's for the most part, it's salaries and contractual services. A lot of those contractual services are going to be in line with other coroners or with the facilities where they have to maybe store a body for a time, So that's a lot of where that's at. They look to be pretty much on budget there with the county general side of it.
Now, we added a part-time person. I guess that's a question for Jess when we.
Well,
have-
I can
have
tell
him
you what,
come in.
well, here, so there's the officer line, that's Jesse, right?
Yep.
The full-time person, even though it's only 12,000, that's Lori, who works also for the sheriff. So her time is split. The part-time people are the part-time coroners that are out, on a weekend. If they get a call, they have to go, right? So those are the guys that, though, that's what their part-timers are.
So I guess what clicks in my head in our discussions last year, I think we pulled Jess back as I think he had a higher request. And it looks like we're tracking that we're still good with the budget that we gave them, so.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything that would say other, that would give them otherwise. And the state stipend there of 6,500 where, it didn't have a budget for, actually, that's the value that the state gives us in terms of salary supplemental for an elected official that is also then offset in the payroll line.
Shouldn't,
Go
shouldn't
ahead.
we have in his some kind of auto expense? He has a vehicle. Shouldn't there be something?
I think that is actually in with his salary. Are you talking the county's vehicle?
County's vehicle. We purchased a vehicle after that gas line explosion,
Okay.
and there's nothing showing that or gas or shouldn't there be some kind
I
of
would
expense?
say it's probably what you're seeing. Well, the gas that he has he doesn't have a lot. I do know it comes through on my Viewpoint, and I think it goes through his supply line. There's not supplies. There's not a lot, that I see. I see maybe once a month a fill up. So I don't know that.
Okay, it's not there, so.
Yeah, yeah. And obviously the expense of the true vehicle is already passed through capital, but yeah, and then insurance for it would be through CIRMA on our top level 000, because we don't break it down. But yeah, I think gas goes through that supply line there.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good question for when Jess comes through, so.
Yeah, just to make sure, and to be honest, I could be wrong, because I don't see all of the expenses, but I do recall seeing a couple times, oh, here's a gas receipt, for something. And no, because it wouldn't be more than $1,000. Yeah, so it's not really in claims. Yeah, and I know he got like an SUV type, right? I mean, might be 80 to $100 or something a fill up. So at worst.
Okay,
Yeah. He also has a corner fund. This is where any fees that he does collect as coroner is coming through that. It does not go through county general. And he's got some miscellaneous expenses on that.
Yep. And his overall run rate is also running slightly under, for mid-year.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Next is general fund. I don't know, do you want to, because we kind of
Well, we have
talked about.
Yeah, I don't really have, what's it say? Does it say general fund? County
Oh,
board.
county board.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I do have a county board. Now, these guys are out of control.
We need to reel them in.
So, you look through this one, and again, probably the biggest one that you're gonna see a huge delta in is the IMRF line. And what that is that we didn't anticipate in our budget was that's a payout for Wendy.
Oh,
When we did her final and all of that then kicked, her final payout for all of the benefits. Well, she had a large chunk of it went to IMRF. And so that went through that department there. So that's probably the anomaly out of the whole department that I see, that for today, at mid-year that we're looking at.
and we talked about that. Now, is that one of those, do we have to do a budget adjustment for that?
Not-
Or how is that,
No.
how are you absorbing that?
Yeah, well, I guess what you really want to look at the closer to November, probably when we get to October, we'll look at county general in total.
Right.
because that's the way the auditors look at it.
Right.
They will deep dive into a department, but from a true budget review, they want to see how did 001 do budget to expenses. So that could be one that we're going to have to do an adjustment for if we have to do a total adjustment.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that would be one.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So, you know, the other thing I would look at is some of these bigger items where we have a lot left out. Well, the run rate wouldn't say you're gonna spend it all as economic development, but I do know we have something in the works for that in terms of dollars, and I think it's more on the east side of the county where we had some costs coming for that
Mhm.
yet. Because that has a $90,000 budget, but we've only spent 15,000. Year to
Well, that
date.
was that's probably that study, isn't it, Bob?
Yeah, for the grant, and I think that's what the meeting is about today. over
Yes,
there.
that's where Jeremy.
But that should have come out of ARPA, I would have thought.
Which it may have.
So. you're
Yeah,
talking-
Patty's shaking her head, yes, but 55 for that.
Yeah,
So we may have over budgeted, not realizing we had ARPA for that.
yep, that's fine.
So that's, Jim, where you almost flip flop the IMRF and those two within the same department. You don't touch it. You know what I mean? It covers it.
Well, and in that case specifically, it may be that we're gonna have to keep that budget there for next year because we're gonna have an ongoing expense. So the stipend that we gave to LCIDA for Tom's salary last year, that came out of ARPA. We're gonna have to cover
Yeah.
that next year.
Yep.
Correct.
Maybe
Correct.
if that account's there, it's totally your call. We pay that in November and do that. So.
Okay, and I misspoke, that 55,000 is for the bike path raise grant. So the 75,000 for the Rochelle grant has already been expended.
Okay, all right. So,
And that's where
Okay.
I guess I thought maybe that's where I was thinking of, but you know,
Maybe not.
there's so many numbers running through my head, you know, I can't keep them all straight.
I think we got that LICDA, CEDA is part of that money is why we put that in there. The 50 and then the 15 that goes to, who's the other 15 go to? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have it. I don't have it right here on the top of my
Okay,
head.
the Laceda was a different ARPA approval and it was 35 from the county
Okay.
or 35 from ARPA and the balance from the county.
County.
And I
Okay.
think that's the 15 we're seeing here in this line item is spent because it'd be 50 overall for Laceda on a year-to-year basis. And we've spent 15 out of this department's budget, 35 out of ARPA.
But Becky, don't we give somebody else 15,000? I can't think of the Blackhawk Waterways or something. But is
Okay.
that out of tourism though, or is that out of our account?
Yeah, Blackhawk Hills RC&D is what you're thinking of, Bob, or?
Blackhawk Hills with
Tourism, and then there's a Blackhawk,
Blackhawk Hills Waterways Tourism, Blackhawk Hills.
RC&D
Is
is the economic development side.
yeah, I'll look that up, but I think we give them 15 or something to. Because we used to give SOC 10 and we didn't do that this year, so.
But overall, this budget is being managed well. You guys know what comes through there. Seems like we're run rate, we're a little heavy at 42%, but I think a lot of that, some of that is the expenses that we've already incurred that you won't incur for the second half of the year. So you should be in good shape.
Some of that is we had two administrators for. a couple
Correct.
months And,
Correct. And that's what I mean by, those were costs associated at the beginning of the year, but you won't see them
Yeah.
the rest of the year. Any questions? You guys want to go to the next one? County clerk? Probably, right?
Sure. Let's hit county clerk and then if folks want to we'll take a 5-minute break and then we'll come back and have at it some more.
Okay, so county clerk has, they're 3 different functions, right? So there's the clerk function where you go in, you do your, she has birth records, marriage license. She also has, you're gonna have a deed recorded, so you got a recording side of it. You also have elections, and you also have tax extensions. So a lot of different things going on in the office. The clerk fees are mainly for those functions that happen. But the other part of that under clerk fees that you'll see a little bit farther down is real estate transfer stamps. So the clerk has to order stamps from the state. We pay for those, and that has to do with deed transfers. But then the state turns back around and gives you a portion of that back. So that is that is some of that that's in that clerk fees. There's raffle permits, liquor licenses, that are small dollar items. And then again,
And that's something that stuck out at me, Paul, the liquor licenses, those are paid annually by the different businesses.
annually in June or July.
So that's a timing issue that
Correct.
they're so low right now.
Correct.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the small dollar value you see there might be somebody new within the county that's paid a small portion through June or something. So that's what that is.
I think we had our first payment come in yesterday for a liquor license, so they're starting to come in.
Starting to come in.
Yeah. Again, some of just the different anomalies. So if you look at this, you also have about 3/4 of the way down in this first section, you'll see another negative number, and it says State of Illinois reimbursement for elections. So the state of Illinois will give us reimbursement for the cost of elections. Most of that probably dealing with the judges' costs and then any of they sometimes will give you a reimbursement if you can get some type of grant or something for software to actually run the election. But you can obviously see it doesn't cover all of the expense because so far year to date, we've had $107,000 in cost. And that was the primary. So in November, we're going to see the main election.
Right.
Most of that cost will hit in November, but it'll probably bleed into December, which would be a new year for us. So we'll need to make sure we budget for it. Then she also has a special recording fund, fees associated with that. I don't know all the different expenses she has on that either. But again, there's $167,000 for that fund balance as of the end of May that there are monies available if there's something we can use it for. And vital records, it's a lot smaller, about $10,000 in funds available. And vital records would obviously be like birth, marriage, type of records that they keep in the office. Any questions? Anything that bounces out at you on that one?
And again, looking at, at the 6-month run rate, she's at 45% in her overall budget, which is a good thing. And again, this goes to show, I always compliment the department heads. They do a good job, and they pay attention to their budget, and they do a good job in coming in for us. So appreciate that. Not everybody's here, but yeah. Yeah. All right, EMA. If there's nobody has any questions on Nancy's, okay. Yep, EMA.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute. I said that we
You
were
wanna
going to
take
go
a
through the
break?
county. Everybody want to take a 5 minute?
Sure.
And, okay, yep. Yep. Let's take a 5 minute break and we'll come back, 5 after 10. And we are at E EMA.
All right, so EMA, most of this, or this department is half funded by grants and half funded by the county. Yeah, so there's the grant value there in the budget is a little high from a functionality standpoint that the state, I think our full expectation for the year is going to be about $20,000 to $22,000 in grant money. We did get some miscellaneous money in. Kevin went out and solicited some, I'd say volunteer funds, or just, somebody was saying, here, we'll buy this for you. So that's what that miscellaneous funds is.
So this is one of those areas, especially when we come through budget, because the 56,000 is completely unrealistic.
It's,
And
yeah. Well, according to Kevin, yes, unrealistic, because the grant that he was working with was at best 20 something thousand a year.
Yeah.
So,
So who gave us this? Who gave us this number for a grant? I mean,
well, that was the question last year, and I
I know,
have,
do we ever get an answer to it?
well, yeah, I have the file from the department heads.
Okay, I'm
that
not
shows
going to beat
that,
somebody
but-
up, but I mean, just
Yeah,
where the
yeah.
error came is.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't put a number out there just to put it.
Well, I know that. I just,
So,
No
yes, I
research
mean,
done.
and I'm not throwing Kevin or anybody else under the bus. It's, hey, maybe that was a misinterpretation of what they were supposed to be doing, but yeah, the numbers came from them. I mean, all of these department budgets are their departments. It's their budget.
One question I have, that last time, which was a while back that we discussed this, that grant that we were expecting from the state had not come through yet. Has any portion of that come through?
$9,000.
Not of the 20?
$9,265 that's on there right now.
Right, that's from what we talked about the last time.
I believe so. I
So that was
think,
actually from last year though, right? Not
oh,
this
no,
current
that,
year.
yeah, that I think made it by November of last year. So it's
Oh,
in
okay,
last year's numbers.
that's my question.
Yeah,
Alright.
yeah.
He just submitted stuff on Monday, I think.
But he did, because I believe I heard him in the office. I'm sorry, I was in my office, but I thought I heard him at the counter. And there is a check that we've deposited for some grant funding that is
For
not reflected
2024.
in these numbers
Okay,
because it would be in June. These numbers, you got to remember, are through May.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But what you were
But
talking
the
about,
one we talked about from
I
before that
believe,
was,
yes, I believe that came through in November last year and was able to offset some of the
Okay.
expenses.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So obviously Kevin's got his salary and his cost of employment, right, in terms of IMRF and healthcare and that. Most of the other stuff, though, are the expenses to run that department. And I know he has been out looking for other avenues of revenue to help offset some of that.
EMA is statutorily required to have the person. Is there, and I'm just asking this as far as from a an accounting standpoint, flow perspective for us. Any advantage or disadvantage of Kevin's having this separate budget, or since because what was it? 3 years ago, we put Kevin under the auspices of the sheriff's department. Do we just at some point just roll this into the sheriff's department and have it as a single budget rather than have this breakout?
You absolutely could. I mean, what this is showing you is the cost of running that department.
And that'd be, and it's good to see what that area is costing us.
Yeah.
You still would have that same number, but it would be,
Yeah, it would, I guess here the advantage is this is the pure cost in its own form right there for you guys to see. As you throw it into the sheriff's budget, which is a $4 to $5 million budget.
it'd get lost.
It may get lost
Yeah.
or it gets absorbed to where some of these, I mean, let's be honest, a number of $40,000 here will just get absorbed or
Right.
lost within that $6 million budget. But again, it's something that you definitely can do. This is nothing more than an accounting operation to review it. There is, I mean, I'd have to look, but I do not believe there's a statute that says you have to have its own fund.
Mhm.
And that's what this is. Is there a statute that says you have to have this service? I think so. I think you're absolutely right.
You know, because in my mind,
Yeah,
as I
yeah,
look
I
at
think you're
Kevin's
absolutely right.
budget, I do kind of think of that, this is just part of the sheriff's side. you
Yeah,
know,
because when we look
it's-
at this, we try to offset all the expenses to the point where it's a zero cost department. When you look at the transfer in, the 52.9 was supposed to be, okay, we got 50 something coming in revenue. We have a total of 110,000 or 112,000 in expenses. The 52.9 was to offset it and make it go hold to zero. So really, it was more of, hey, how does everybody want to see it?
Mhm.
I don't see why we couldn't just roll up into the sheriff's budget. You could even make it an accounting line for it within the sheriff's budget.
I sure like having it separate though, because there's so much goes on in that department.
Yeah,
You
well,
know, I mean, I mean, there's equipment, yes, they interwork with each other. But you wouldn't put a fire department with the police department. And this is kind of an insurance thing. I see it as like a fire department where we want that equipment sitting there and him not working. You know, because when they're all out somewhere and everything is dispersed, there's some terrible tragedies taking place. And it's just nice to know that we've got the control of that to see what is really going on. I mean, to Paul's point, I think at that $40,000, it's lost. So when that, we have
it would be.
no idea
Yeah.
what's going on.
I
Yeah.
don't discount that at all. It's,
Wouldn't have as much control over purchases as you would.
Save a lot of questions
well,
through the
how
sheriff.
do I want to say it? I guess if it's part of the sheriff's budget, the accountability is with the sheriff.
Yeah.
I-
I think, go ahead,
Sorry,
Nancy.
I just
sorry.
have a completely different thought about it. And I don't disagree with those, but as a county board member, this is valuable information that maybe constituents might need to know a time or two, what we do protect them with and what their tax dollars go to. If it's all absorbed into the sheriff's, it's hard for a person like me to explain, look, this is what happens. This is why we have this department. This is what your protection is. So by keeping it separate, it gives us the ability to have accountability to our constituents. That's just my take on it.
I think what you'd want to do is we should probably relook at this structure and not anticipate that it's a $0 cost budget.
Right.
Is what you really want to do come the next budget. What I mean by that is obviously the grant revenue is unrealistic. So bring that back down to 10 or 15,000 or whatever it is. And then just put in the budget value for the costs associated to the department, but don't show a transfer in either. What's the point? We know it's an expendable, it's an expense budget is what it is. And that will then put some, like the 52 that we transfer from 001 into 305, well, it just stays in 001 under county general. And we just know that 305 needs to be cleaned up at the end of the year so it doesn't carry over an expense year over year over year. It's an accounting function.
I'm just looking to see how many we've got. All right, let's get through health department,
Okay.
because that's going to probably take a good 10 minutes. And then we'll defer the rest to July meeting, and we'll go through the rest of them at that time. And then we'll go into regular order. So,
Okay.
we're at, any questions on the NA? Okay.
So health department is really made up basically of two funds. There's a TB fund. And that fund was actually started probably almost 100 years ago. I am serious. It actually, in terms of the TB outbreak, if you think about, that was in the 1920s and 30s, but that fund was started. It's actually called a sanatorium fund. There's not a lot of activity that goes through there, but there is $100,000 in that fund. And as I look at this and I see contractual services year to date shows a credit balance of $6,600. I think that is probably a line item mistake in that probably should be more under fees collected. I think they get, and Reed was showing me this the other day too, I think they get contractual revenue from somebody and they were taking it more as a contractual service, and that's where they should. So typically when they get a check, the department head will write out the account number that they want that deposited to. And as I go back through over the years, I think I could find this year after year after year. So it's, it just took somebody else like Reed looking at it going, that doesn't make sense. And it doesn't. We'll probably get that cleaned up and moved.
Okay.
It's more of a revenue issue, than it is an expense. The other item for health department, and it's got quite a few account numbers associated to it, is the health department really does a nice job of getting grants and monies from the state and, from the federal money to help support their operation. That's not to say that the county doesn't support it, because we do in some respects, but they have a line item for almost every different type of revenue that they bring in. And so you can see that so the grants are loaded as 4.7. They start as 4.7. The fees collected are 4.4, and then some contractual services are 4.5. But
before we get it, just I want the top two lines, of course, we've changed how we kind of handle health departments in a large way.
yeah,
Those because really should these two lines, those top lines, the property taxes and the personal property, because they're not collecting that as an individual department.
well, but what we do with property tax is, when we do a distribution for property taxes, we do move it directly into that account. Kind of like with the highway, it's levied. It's levied for that.
Yes. So
Yeah.
we would
So we do levy for it. So we do move it in there,
okay.
right? Personal property replacement tax, that all comes in under one large, as one large, but
Right.
we also then move, and this again is, I'll call it legacy. We just had moved $17,000 of that into the health department. Doesn't mean that's not a levy. That's just hey.
The reason why I say that, it looks odd.
Yeah.
It was probably from, again,
It'll-
legacy
legacy.
because they were almost treated as a
separate entity.
correct.
Yeah. And in the past, that personal or the property taxes were, we had, at one point, I think we had levied over 400,000 for them.
Mm-hmm.
And, to help with their operations. But again, as I said previously, they're doing so well with finding funds from other sources, which is, they're a great model for everybody in the county. They really are, in terms of go find funds from other sources. Because if we continue to just rely on property tax and the state income tax and state sales tax, we're not gonna sufficiently cover our expenses. I mean, that's just the hard reality. So, but so Jim, those two, and you notice there's no dollars there.
Mhm.
We haven't made that. We haven't made that transfer yet.
Transfer. Yep.
Just like anything, we haven't made any transfers on the property tax because we have not made that first distribution. But you can see all the fees, and these are fees they collect for the different services that they provide. And then I think under health department, there's a fee for food permits. If you look at that one, just because the ARPA team is here, it's got 55,000 in it so far year to date, and their budget was 70. A lot of those fees, probably almost all of it, were paid through ARPA because or 60,000 of that, I believe you guys had per year going to the health department last year and then this year for helping the community, using ARPA funds, helping the community. This would be for restaurants, paying a food permit fee, your food trucks, those type of things. So that's that. So as I come down here, yeah, I can go in, I'm on my spreadsheet, but I get down to line 75 on my spreadsheet, but probably the first 60 lines are different revenue lines for the health department. So again, anything that starts with a 47 is a grant. Some of those grants, like the COVID mass vaccine 2021, obviously, it's there as a legacy because there's history there, and we'd want that to see, going backwards, but it's not probably going to be used again now going forward. And then, their expenses are, the biggest chunk there again is going to be cost of personnel.
Yep.
And, as I pointed out, 67%. So this cost of personnel, that 67% that I pointed out under county general, this does not include that because it's in its own fund. So.
And then our contribution of what we did under this budget was we agreed to transfer in $280,000 because we were trying to draw down her fund balance down to 6-month level, I think was what we were targeting.
We were targeting
And that would be 730,000 roughly.
Around 700, yeah.
And where's it at today?
Yeah, as you can see, as of the end of May, this is the end of May, it's $930,000. So again, I think and that is without us even transferring the 280.
Yeah, if we
yet.
the 280 would be
Has not been transferred yet.
Right.
So that would push it well over $1 million. Again, I think they do a nice job. I compliment them on finding revenue sources.
Yep,
So
agreed.
But the other expenses, they're all on a run rate basis. They're all doing well. I don't see any anomalies outside of, what would be going on for them.
And their run rate, as we just talked about, they're 41%, so they're doing well as far as run rate for this year.
Yeah, they should be fine.
All right, let's do one more real quick because I want to make sure that we're able to cover everything next month. Let's do solid waste and stop there.
Highway solid waste.
Yeah. Because
Okay.
solid waste won't take us very
No,
long.
do you want to just do the solid waste side of it, or do you want to go into highway as well?
No, we'll start on highway.
On the.
I'll make a note,
Okay.
mine, you make a note
I'll
of
make a
yours
note.
and
Yeah,
we'll
I'll
know
make a note.
where to pick back up
Yeah.
next month, but yeah, let's do solid
So
waste.
solid waste, obviously, the fees collected are the tipping fees that we get. We get those once a quarter. So if you see in the month of May, there's no current month revenue sitting there. Well, that's because we get those on a quarterly basis, and May is not part of, it's not a month that we would get that in. We're at 238,000 though through the first half of the month on a $400,000 budget. We should come in slightly above that 400,000. So that's a good thing. We're a little above run rate. As you can tell, the interest income though, because there is a 2 million, there is a slightly more than 2 million, but by our
Ordinance.
own ordinances, we have to have $2 million in that fund for any issues with the landfill. Year to date, we're at almost $46,000 in interest. And we thought maybe we could get 30 at last year's budget time.
Yeah.
And that's halfway through. So hopefully if things continue to go, we'll end up somewhere close to 90 because this fund never really does dip below 2 million. It just doesn't. Most of the contractual services Dave actually handles and runs and there's costs that he has to do to run part of the solid waste program. But the revenue kind of offsets that. Anything above the 2 million, typically at the end of the year, what we'll do is we'll transfer that to our capital fund as excess. So we always start the year at that $2 million fund balance and move forward. Now, I think this year we may have in our budget, we may
Thank you.
have.
I wanted you to say it.
Yeah, so what we did to make sure that our budget was a balanced budget, we anticipated an excess and we were going to move that excess to county general before the end of the year to make sure we're whole and cover our expenses.
So, and that was a departure. This was the first budget that we took
Actually
that
had to do.
excess over the ordinance of this solid waste fund. We had that as part of our and that's what helped make our budget work this last year. Just
Absolutely. I mean, we already had anticipated a higher cost for salaries out of the FOP. We have that in contingency, which will move into the sheriff's department. And that alone was probably one of our biggest costs outside of what our run rate would have been from last year. And knowing that, and then the PPRT being down almost 500,000 in revenue, we had to have something to support total budget overall. And I think our move is like 300 and our total move is a little over $300,000. So that's solid waste. There's, if we can get the tipping fees up again, that would be fantastic.
Yep.
So
would be. Okay, let's stop there. And so when we, next month, we'll start on highway and we'll go through the rest of the departments at that time. Anything else? Any questions for Paul or Reed while we're here before we leave it?
I
We
will
go
give
into
you the
regular
heads
order.
up that Reed will go through this next month. I will not be.
Oh, that's right. You will not be here.
I don't have any questions, Jim, but this is really helpful in preparation for thinking about the department heads coming.
Sure.
It's a good exercise. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. Appreciate that. Sometimes you think, oh, going through all these numbers, oh my gosh, hit me over the head, but
It makes you start to think,
yes.
about the upcoming or makes you understand.
yeah, indeed. Okay, get back to regular order. We have no unfinished business. We do not have any Joseph E. Meyer resolutions. And so we're down to new business, the board action request form for the Allied facility. And who wants to take that? Okay, let me get that up. Okay, and this is the corrected, Becky, this is the corrected version. Okay, so we've got the proposal is total due for Allied invoice number 102 is $2,153,000, $87.26. ARPA covering $1,982,415, and the remaining 170,670,201. And just, this still puts us, we're going to come in under budget because the finance committee had approved an up to $4.2 million. Are we still good on that?
Yeah, I believe that that does actually keep us a little under that.
All right.
I love hearing that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And is the, Dean doing, is the work done pretty much over there or by the end of the month? Oh, sorry.
There was some parts that were defective when they came in and they've ordered them and they've got them coming in, but they're not totally done yet, so.
So, and I'm assuming there'll be cleanup after this, or is this it? Anybody?
If you look at the invoice, I think there's like 500,000 left
500,000 of
Look at the-
additional
that they're still
expenses
gonna
that-
bill for later on.
Gotcha. Thanks, Patty. Okay. All right. So this is an action items. I need a motion to approve and move this to executive, moved by Naylor, seconded by Hudson. Any further discussion on this action request? Huh?
So we're paying them 100% other than this 500,000. And they really aren't done, correct? I mean, there's,
The work's not done. They're still waiting on, like I say, the defective parts so they can replace them.
so does the 500,000 that we're gonna owe them later enough to hold back to make sure we get this actually done and taken care of so we don't end up, you know, we've been down this road before.
Oh, yeah.
We
Yep.
Yeah.
we pay somebody and it doesn't all done and we have to go to Charlie and just, you know, I'm not opposed to paying them, but I just
Right.
like to know we've got something we're holding. Is that, and
Because
you guys know better than, I'm just asking the question. If
In looking at the invoice that is attached with the board action request form, on the very last page, it's indicated as page 5.
Yeah.
and It's labeled as continuation sheet.
Okay.
Section H shows balance to finish, $6,000 or
It's upside down.
$659,762.
That enough to cover what parts and stuff that they,
See, the parts are all
The parts-
warranted.
It's on that
whatever, they're just
last
waiting to
one
get 'em
section.
they gotta put them in
H
and they
there.
gotta, okay.
Yeah,
Their
yeah, we're not-
So- So the way I read this is that we've,
They can't.
in paying this invoice, we'll be at 3.162, that's 6,105 of billed and paid
Mhm.
if we approve
Yeah,
this
I
invoice.
believe so.
And then the 659, so for the total project cost, it's the 659 plus the 3.1. Is that, am I reading that right?
I thought that was my anticipation, but I don't think these guys would know that from that perspective.
Yeah.
That's probably more of who's
That's
doing the general
Yeah,
on
and
this.
that's a Jeremy question,
Yeah.
but that's the way I take
Okay.
that.
And,
Okay.
and really, when I look at that, it's a good question, Tom, but you know, when you think about retainage, you typically think about, hey, I'm gonna hold off 10% or so before it is completely done. This would definitely be more than 10% holdback,
I'm good with
so,
that. I
yeah.
just want to bring that up. I'm sure
Yeah.
you were-
yeah. And I think they're working on it as we speak, so,
Well, and I don't distrust that they'll do it. It's just-
yeah, yeah.
we've been
At
down
what
that
point
road
will they do
before
it?
and,
Yeah, yeah. No, I think they're on the, and obviously though, defective parts, you could be at the mercy of your supplier for those, you know, in terms of time.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I'm not so
Yeah.
concerned about time as I am actual completion.
yeah. Well,
Getting
the
done.
longer it takes to get those parts, the longer you become, oops, I gotta get back to the county to get that done, right? So it, to your point,
We do have some
yeah,
funds we're holding, so, okay.
yeah, we're holding some back.
Okay, answered my question.
We have a motion on the table. Any other further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor to approve the board action request, move it on to executive, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. The only other item is the sheriff's report. Just an information, non-action item. I don't know if they had a chance to read through that. Kind of interesting reading.
Yeah.
And after yesterday, we're gonna have another interesting report to read next month. So And we're thankful that my understanding was no fatalities yesterday and either on the perpetrator side or the officer side from Old County. Definitely want to appreciate the work that Ogle County's folks and our folks participated and all the, our community and our area's ability to handle an emergency like that. And it was really all hands. As I read through who all was involved, and you had to stop and think of all the infrastructure that it takes to have in place to do all those things that occurred yesterday. It's pretty amazing that our small area in northern Illinois has those type of
When
capabilities.
you attend Kevin's class on Monday, you will see how much that plays in and how important that he's talking about from FEMA is. That's a perfect example of what Kevin's class. So.
Sure. Appreciate that. Anyway, okay. That's all I have. Anything else good for the cause? Anybody have anything else? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Kitson, seconded by Naylor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.